G'day, Dr. Karl, Shirtleys of Science, University of Sydney. Today talking with my colleague, my go-to person, Professor Claire Collins. Is that the right pronunciation?
That is exactly the right pronunciation, Dr. Karl.
And you come from the world's biggest coal port area?
That's exactly right, Newcastle. So I work at the University of Newcastle, and I'm the co-director of the Food and Nutrition Research Program for Hunter Medical Research, also in Newcastle.
And with a bit of luck, you're going to clear up all the misconceptions floating in my brain about processed food, ultra-processed foods, hyperpalatable foods, and additives.
Yes.
And how there's a weird rating system that rates them not on their nutritional value. So you're going to make it all clear. And luckily, you've written an article in The Conversation, this article here, called Not All Processed Foods Are Bad For You.
Yes.
Here's what you can tell from reading the label, September 3, 2025. Where should we start? Take it away.
Perhaps, Dr. Karl, I can tell you why I got interested in this topic.
Oh, yeah.
So one of the challenges is at the moment everybody's talking about ultra-processed foods. And I think when you talk about those, you can envision bright colours, things in packets, almost like monster foods. But not all ultra-processed foods are equal. And I was at the supermarket and I was looking in the bread aisle.
Yeah.
And what I noticed is that there's some really great bread products. They've got lots of health stars on the label, and the health star rating is what we use to try and tell you, me, and the shoppers which product might be better for them. Uh-huh. But when I was looking at the ingredients, I was counting up all the additives, and I thought, wow, this is really hard for people. If you want to avoid additives, this product's got a lot of stars, but it's also got a lot of additives. And it is a healthy, good product, got lots of whole grains. So I thought everybody's criticising ultra-processed foods, but some of them are actually okay. And the difference is in these additives, and it's really confusing. So I thought we should actually talk about the difference between health versus processing.
Right. So as a bit of background, would you count yogurt as a processed food?
Now, this is why it's so challenging to figure out, because I specifically went and looked at yogurts, and if I bought plain Greek yogurt, it's an unprocessed food or a minimally processed food. But if I buy the bright pink one that, it's got a pretty long shelf life, it's got lots of flavourings added into it, it's considered an ultra-processed food. And then I could find some that were not quite as processed. So what I should tell you first, Karl, is that in the world there are a number of rating systems for this level of food processing. The most common one is called NOVA. It's not an acronym. The founders, in South America just thought that was a cool word.
It was in Brazil, wasn't it?
In Brazil.
Yeah.
And they made 4 levels of processing, and they call them NOVA 1, unprocessed foods, through to NOVA 4, ultra-processed foods. Uh-huh. So 1 is things like an apple. I picked an apple, I eat it. That's a 1.
You don't have to do any processing between seeing it and eating it.
Maybe you've got to pick it, maybe you're going to wash it, pack it, take it to the supermarket. Almost nothing, virtually. Milk is considered a 1. I have actually nuked it, not nuked it, but
Pasteurised it?
Pasteurised, that's the word I was looking for. I've pasteurised it. But so that's a 1. Plain basic foods that your great-grandparents would have eaten. They would have been able to get those foods and eat them.
And you didn't need a chainsaw to open the packet?
You did not.
Okay.
And chances are it didn't have a really, really super bright colour. It didn't come in little multi-bags of 12. And it didn't sit in your cupboard for up to years. So then the next level, they're called culinary ingredients. So things like oils that you might need to take those apples and put it together, maybe some honey, and you could make it into an apple smoothie or an apple pie or something like that. Things like that. So they're ingredients. Yes, salt is actually a culinary ingredient.
Okay, and the level of salt is an important thing, of course.
And we'll come to that later. Okay. So then the next one is called NOVA 3, and these are really put in. This is a bit of processing to extend the shelf life. So NOVA 3 is actually canning and freezing. So you've now done something to it to extend the shelf life. And they're the most common ones. You might dry it out.
But couldn't you also extend the shelf life by adding, say, antibacterial chemicals which might interfere with your gut microbiota?
Yes, and now you're moving into the category of Nova 4.
Oh, okay, so we'll stay in category 3. Okay.
Yeah.
So flash freezing and cooking and then... Canning.
Old-fashioned bottling.
Yep.
That's it. They're now Nova 3 products. And what you're doing with those processes, you're trying to change like the chemistry in that food's environment so that bugs won't grow.
Yep.
So the food won't go off. And Nova 3, in the olden days, before modern food processing techniques, what people did in their homes or in communities to extend the shelf life of the food was really to help them get through winter when there was less variety of products. So people did bottle things themselves, or they did dry things out and store them so that they'd get through winter.
And that would count as Nova 3.
That would count as Nova 3.
But it'd be still a perfectly fine food.
Perfectly fine food, not a lot of additives. But then we come to Nova 4. And Nova 4, these are products where there's usually more than one additive. There can be up to 10 or more additives. And some of them are still designed to try and stop those bugs growing. But now they're also designed to improve the flavour, improve the texture, extend the shelf life, improve the taste, make you want more of them. So they're now going beyond just to extend the life of the food supply. They may or may not now serve cosmetic purpose. And they may contain some additives that are actually not needed at all to extend the shelf life. And I think the best example of that is some of the bright colours. Yeah, the bright colours, the food dyes added in, they're really designed to make it look pretty. And if you think about some of those products, who's attracted to really brightly coloured foods?
Children.
Yes. It's actually more children. So if you walk down, especially the confectionery aisle, it's the kids, isn't it, who are going to say, can we get that? Can we get that? Can we get that? Can we get that? So some of them are cosmetically added in order to make you buy them as well. And so they're called Nova 4.
Okay, so you sent me a paper here.
Yes.
The Key to Intestinal Health.
Yes.
A review and perspective on food additives. And on page 5 million or something, it's got additives such as, and within each group, there are so many different types.
Yes.
Preservatives, antioxidants, flavour enhancers, sweeteners, sugar alcohol, azo dye, which I didn't realise was a thing, but of course it is.
Yes.
Emulsifier and probiotic. Okay, can we just do a tiny diversion and then come back to this?
Yes.
The additives. You can either get Greek yogurt or Greek-style yogurt.
Yep.
And apparently Greek-style yogurt has emulsifiers which do something bad to the microbiota.
Yep.
Is that still thought to be the case?
Yes. And to tell you the truth, Carl, this is what got me interested in looking at the additives more, from reading the research on the emulsifier category of food additives and the human gut. So let's just talk about the emulsifier category, because I think internationally this is what people are more worried about. Yeah. So before we jump into that, you are absolutely right that there are so many food additives. So in Australia, we have Food Standards Australia and New Zealand. Now, if you were a food manufacturer, you can't just go, oh, yeah, I want to put this in food and see what happens. You can't do that. It has to be approved by Food Standards Australia and New Zealand, and we call it FSANZ for short. So in Australia, there's 300, 350, depending on, on the current list of additives that are permitted to be added to food. So they go through a process. A lot of the studies are done in animals to make sure they're safe in the levels that humans would consume. And it's another acronym called GRAS, generally regarded as safe. And we've got like 300 additives, and just one category is called emulsifiers. So if you think...
so it's not 300 chemicals, it's 300 categories, and then each category can have a whole web of extra things in it.
No, we've got 300 additives, and
300.
we got roughly 30 categories.
30
So
okay,
just
thank you
roughly.
for clearing up on that.
But within each of those categories, what I think is confusing for people, there might be 10 or 20 in that category.
Yep.
They have a chemical name and they have a number. So when you look at that food additive label to find the emulsifier, it's not going to say necessarily emulsifier. It might say soy lecithin. It might say polysorbate 80. It might say carboxy whatever. Like they're starting to be hard to pronounce. Or it might just have a number. And a lot of the numbers for emulsifiers are in that 400 range. But don't panic, because if you are trying to avoid emulsifiers, go to Fazan's and download the list. I think it's worth it. Save it to your phone so you know what numbers and words you're looking for. Now, let's come back to your original question. Why are we interested in emulsifiers?
Yeah.
Well, there's kind of been an assumption that with these food additives, well, your body doesn't absorb them, so what's the problem? But now there's more recognition that some of these food additives, sure, your body doesn't absorb them in the duodenum, which is the first part of your gut, but they can go all round through the loops, all the way down to the large intestine, get to the very last section of the colon, where all the bugs lived, called your microbiota. All the bugs are there, and the microbiota can have a field day with them. They can break them down, or these products can actually attack your microbiome or the gut itself. And why the emulsifiers are of concern, Carl, is they can disrupt the bugs, but they can go straight for the gut wall, break down the mucus layer.
That's it, yeah, from memory. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Break down the mucus layer and potentially create little holes, which is referred to as a leaky gut. And then it's like punching a little hole, and then all these either toxins produced by unhealthy bacteria or other food components that are still there in the colon can escape through and make you more likely to develop an allergy, for example, or trigger inflammation, increase your risk of inflammatory bowel conditions, give you diarrhea. And so that's why there's now this super interested in, well, what damage might emulsifiers do? Who's more susceptible to it, and which ones, and how much? And all of that research is like heating up. Lots more people are getting interested in this topic.
It's a huge area.
Huge area.
Am I still correct in thinking that with regard to the microbiota or biome, whatever you call it, there are slightly more bacteria than your own cells that you got when your parents loved each other very much in a special way?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So 37 trillion cells in my body and roughly 40 trillion bacteria. So, and I believe that if you go to the trouble of bringing up, for example, a mouse without any bacteria in its gut, it'll be roughly 2/3 of its normal weight, eat twice as much, and be very fragile and have a weak, immature system. We need these guys.
We need our microbiome.
We need them.
Yeah, so what's interesting is, why did we think that food additives might have no effect on people, or these generally regarded as safe? So I think the emulsifiers are a good example in the way you can think of, why are they doing something in your colon, but they've gone all the way through your digestive tract, and you should be able to just excrete them out. But if you think about it, the emulsifiers, they're a little bit like washing up liquid. So in the sense that, you have a really dirty baking dish and it's got all kinds of stuff in there. If you squirt that on, what it does is it can really break down all of those fats, and that's kind of the same effect on your intestinal wall. When the emulsifiers get all the way to the colon, it's kind of now presented like with a dirty dish, so to speak, and can actually attack your colonic wall. So that's the emulsifiers, and that's why, like I said, why I think people are interested in those in particular.
I came across this concept of ultra-processed foods by David Kessler's book, who was involved with the FDA, called The End of Overeating.
Yes.
And he reckoned that there'd been this long history in the USA where people got a little bit fatter in middle age and then lost it in later age. And then with these hyper-palatable foods, that he called them, the ones that are just so delicious, the weight just kept on going up and up. And he put down the maybe perhaps too simplistically, the obesity epidemic, at least part of it was caused by this introduction of hyper-palatable
Yeah.
foods that just do not exist in nature.
Yeah.
And in my case, it's Doritos.
Yes.
And like I could eat a whole huge mega packet of Doritos and then think, oh my God, I'll have another one. And in that go, I've eaten more than my daily allowance of calories. I've got virtually no nutrition and I've now got a sore gut.
Yes.
And so the way I get around that is when I go to the supermarket, I make sure I've eaten something and I say, keep away from me,
You
devil
don't go.
spawn. I know your temptation, you sirens, and I walk past them.
Yeah.
But they really are
Yes.
designed to be so delicious.
Yes. Now, one of the challenges, I think, for researchers is that it's really hard to experiment on people with these hyperpalatable foods. And you're exactly right. This particular combination of the additives, the fat, sugar and salt who like to hang out together.
And the mouthfeel.
The mouthfeel.
Man, the engineers have done a beautiful job.
They've actually worked it out that they do not exist in nature, but when you artificially engineer them to be in the foods, we can't resist them. So that's not surprising why we tend to overeat them. So in Australia, when you look at this NOVA categorisation, up to 40%, depending on the age group, a little bit more, comes from ultra-processed foods.
What?
Yeah, up to 40%.
So if you're looking at average people,
Yeah.
say 40% of their diet can be ultra-processed, which can be good or bad, depending.
Can be good or bad.
Yep.
So researchers have started to look at, well, what happens if you vary that? And I recently had a chat with the lead researcher, Samuel Dickin from the UK, and his team did a study because they were worried because in their country, for some individuals there, it's up to 60% of their usual food intake is now ultra-processed. Way, way worse than Australia. So they did this study where they did do an experiment and fed people ultra-processed or the Nova 3, the moderately processed, minimally processed foods. So what they did is they got people to volunteer, split them in two groups, and they fed them both diets. But to make sure they stuck to it, they gave them all of their food for 2 months. Then they said, go back and do your old usual eating patterns. That's called a washout period. And then they gave them the opposite one.
Oh, they flipped them.
They flipped them.
Ah.
Because they wanted to know, well, what actually happens when you give people all of the foods? You know, do they get more or less unhealthy? So what they did was they got the volunteers. They were a bit worried that what happens if they give some of the food to someone else at their place, or what if we don't accidentally give them enough and they lose weight? So they gave them
self-monitoring is hard, isn't it?
they gave them more food than they need. They gave them 4,000 calories a day, which is around 16,000 kilojoules. Now that's double what the average adult needs. And so they gave them all their food and they encouraged them to eat as much as they feel like. Don't force themselves to eat. Don't starve themselves either. And they brought, at the very end of the study, what they found, and they were really surprised by, is that both groups actually lost weight.
Nova 3 and Nova 4, as compared to their normal diet.
Yeah, yes. Well, so they were called, yes, so
Have I got that right? My memory's right or wrong?
yes, your memory's right.
Ish.
Your memory's right. And this is actually the study. It's so cool.
Which one is that?
That one there. Can you see it?
Ultra
It's called ultra processed or minimally processed. I made a mistake, Carl. It's minimally processed,
Minimally, okay.
ultra processed.
Okay.
There's one more thing I didn't tell you that I've got to fess up. So what they did, and they kept this a secret from the participants, is they matched them and they were actually both healthy diets. So it's ultra-processed, so the food's equivalent in Australia, ultra-processed, Nova 4, but they've got 5 health stars, or maybe 4 or 4.5
So it
health
can
stars.
be ultra-processed,
Yes.
but still healthy. They're not opposite necessarily.
Not opposite. So do you want me to tell you what happened?
Lay it on me, man.
Yeah. Both groups lost weight.
But eating as much as they wanted,
As much as they felt like.
as they felt like.
As they felt like. So they were meant to eat until they go, yeah, I feel full. But the caveat was both diets were healthy. But the group who had the minimally processed, the healthiest, they lost twice as much as the other group. So they lost 2 kilos rather than 1 kilogram on the ultra-processed. Now, do you want an explanation on why they think that happened?
Please. What was going on?
So if I gave you apple crumble, like your grandmother used to make,
Yep.
and versus if I gave it to you and it was just stick it in the microwave, you had to do more chewing.
Ah.
All of the ingredients weren't processed as much. So what they realised is that when you process it, you also are making the foods softer and you don't need to chew as much.
Ah.
But the other interesting, unexpected thing they found that even if it was an ultra-processed food Nova Category 4,
Yep.
if it was healthy with 4 stars, you still did more chewing than if it didn't have the stars, if it had 2 stars or 1 stars. Because it's...
Really?
Yeah.
The more stars, the more chewing. And when you chew, you bring into action all the enzymes in your mouth, all the digestive juices,
Yep.
1.5 litres a day, and you need them. Is it fair to say that if you drink juice rather than chew on the fruit, you're not doing that chewing thing, so you don't get as much
Yeah,
goodness
that's
out of it?
exactly right. And so I found that super interesting, and because it's a helpful guideline. So for all the listeners, if you're really time poor and you go, well, you know, that's my lot, I have to buy convenience food, then at least start by selecting healthier ultra-processed foods, foods that have more health stars. And for the UK, where they found that up to 60% of food is now ultra-processed, they found that for people living in the UK, they're going to get some health benefits from at least picking the healthiest foods. They have a traffic light system there. They don't use the health stars. So if they picked foods that were more green and yellow rather than red, for us, it's about picking more health stars.
Ah.
But the challenge then is, I think, if you go, well, there's people in my family who have inflammatory bowel conditions, I am going to pick some convenience foods. So I am going to try and pick more health stars. My suggestion is that if you then, on top of that, also want to reduce food additives, just pick one category per grocery shop and try and look for products that have lesser numbers or lesser words that you can't pronounce, because remember I said the manufacturers can put the numbers
Yep.
or the big long words.
So just a smaller list of numbers.
Yeah, and
fewer
I was
additives.
really surprised when I started doing that myself, is that you can find products that are convenient with lesser food additives, but Carl, it takes a lot of time.
It is kind of tricky, like it's going to a barista and you see all their milks that they've got up there, and then if you go and read the tiny writing on each one, you know, oat milk and almond milk, you'll see that some of them have got lots of nutrition and some have got hardly any at all, but you've
Yeah.
got to read the tiny writing.
Now, a couple more things to help people. There is an app, I found an app called Open Food Facts.
Open,
Food Facts.
so just 3 letters of 4 open food facts, just one after the other.
If you Google it, it'll take you to being able to download it. It's crowdsourced information,
Oh.
so it's not necessarily 100% accurate, up to date rather. But what I found is there are some double entries as well. You know, somebody's found a food and uploaded it, and someone else has found it the next year and re-uploaded it. But that's a bit of a guide, and it's trying to get the Nova information, the healthiness information, and the additive information. So it's not complete, but it's a start and might save you some time. Some of the other interesting things I think is, for most of us, there is one product category that we're using every week that's ultra processed, and I think I'll give you an example of bread. So,
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
I'm thinking of bread as ultra-processed, but you have started off with a grain and done all sorts of stuff to turn it into this fluffy thing.
And I was really surprised at how there is a big variation in the number of additives. And then when I found the one with the lower amount of additives, I thought, that explains why that one only lasts a couple of days on the kitchen bench. You know, because the additives keep extending the shelf life, particularly for bread.
Ah.
So if the one that you really like is only going to last a couple of days, just take out enough bread for a couple of days and put the rest in the freezer. Now, here's another interesting thing I found in my quest. I did go and look at the plant-based milks, and I was surprised about the number of additives, but I was also pleasantly surprised that there are some plant-based milks with fewer additives. So don't do bread and plant-based milks in the same week, because the lights will be turned off at the supermarket and they'll be kicking you out.
By reading all the labels, it'll take you forever.
Yeah, so just pick one category a week and pick the foods that you're using all the time and you're going, I better check that because I use that every single day, or if it's a product you're giving to children. So we didn't really talk about all the other categories of food additives, but something we know from the literature is that genetically some people are more susceptible to adverse effects of food additives, and it's possibly that this is what makes some people also more susceptible to inflammatory bowel conditions. Their bodies and food additives are not agreeing, really. So looking at other members of your family, or considering that, like, if you're adopted and you don't know about your family history, just starting to take a look, maybe keep a food record, trying to make a link. Is there some link between my food patterns? And then the other thing, if it's really tricky for you to try and work this out, just ask to be referred to a dietitian who specialises in inflammatory bowel conditions, and they're there. You can go.
They have to be registered. They're not somebody who got their certificate over the internet.
No, you can go to Dietitians Australia. You have to have qualifications from, a university that runs that course, like Sydney University here, like my university, University of Newcastle. But you can actually go to Dietitians Australia, find an expert, and ask to be referred, because you want to sort out those issues. You want to be able to enjoy your food, and you want to be able to eat food that's nourishing you rather than harming you or your microbiome.
It does make a big difference once you get past 22, the food that you eat. So as we finish here, firstly, the article in the conversation, not all processed foods are bad for you.
Yes.
And then the other papers that I flashed up to the screen.
Yes.
So how can people follow you in your fine work besides, what's that one, No Time?
No Money, No Time. Yes,
so
Dr. Karl.
Firstly go to that.
Yes, go to No Money, No Time. So we've got links on all of these topics. And like you, Dr. Karl, we also do take requests. If we don't have a resource that matches to your particular health condition, we'll add it. And our email is actually there on No Money, No Time.
And do you take students who perhaps want to continue in this field and become PhDs? And
our university does. We take research students. We do. We take PhD candidates, and I think we've graduated like 50 or so now.
Wow.
Yeah, we do. It's just endless, the amount of topics. We don't research everything, but we do lots of research. And I have a colleague, Dr. Kerith Duncanson, who specifically takes research students in regard to gut health specifically.
And social media, how should people find you there?
On all of them, Twitter, Blue Sky, LinkedIn. LinkedIn seems to be the one that we post on most, and also Instagram, of course.
And what name are you? What handle on LinkedIn?
At Prof. C. Collins.
Oh, Prof.
Yeah.
Prof. C for Claire.
Collins.
Prof. C. Collins.
And the same with the, all of those little initials that Blue Sky makes you put in, but it's the same start.
Thank you so much for setting me straight once again, Professor Claire.
Absolute pleasure, Dr. Karl.
Shirtloads of Science is washed, spun and aired by the University of Sydney.